Yeah, I was just going to make one more comment too. I think is important to just highlight is, I think the big winner in all of this, the entity that comes out on top is China. And I think this happens all over the world, as a matter of fact, and it happens a lot in Africa. That China thrives in this environment where there's a lack of physical security and there's a lot of corruption. And I think that describes Eastern DRC, for the last few decades at least. But I think China's taken advantage of it, and I think they've taken advantage of the people in the DRC. And I just wanted to know, are we actively engaging with President Sheikh Hashedi and with the other government officials in Kinshasa about the problems with the Chinese? I would refer to it, I wrote it down here as strategic corruption, because they will promote this instability, because it keeps their competitors, Western investment out of these areas. And so until we get past some of that, we need to do that. And I've talked to some American companies that were in the DRC that were subject to this, where they had regulatory burdens put on them. They had overwhelming, unreasonable taxation on their businesses, and some of it was being driven by relationships with the Chinese, with the government in Kinshasa, to promote some of that, to kind of eliminate them as competition. So I think many of my colleagues here have asked, how do we get some of these Western countries, the United States and some of our other allies, to come in and invest in the DRC and invest in become good business partners with the DRC. I think that until we address some of this stuff, it's also exceedingly difficult to do that. So have we had conversations about that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Congressman, for the chance to elaborate a bit more on the strategic partnership agreement that the U.S. made with the DRC, because it addresses all of these issues. So we know that Chinese companies have a vast majority of ownership over critical mineral assets in the DRC, especially copper and cobalt assets, and those are critical for U.S. supply chain security, especially important for our efforts to be dominant in emerging technology and to supply the defense industrial base. So part of the strategic agreement, the strategic partnership agreement with the DRC is aimed at making sure that U.S. companies have preferential access to strategic assets in the DRC, which we will work with the DRC to designate. So the purpose of that is to get U.S. companies in the door, prevent Chinese companies from taking over more of these assets, and to make sure that the offtake is coming to the United States to reduce our reliance on the refined minerals coming from China. So certainly this agreement is aimed at reasserting U.S. dominance in the critical minerals sector, also making sure that the DRC is able to profit from its resources, because as you said, Chinese companies often have the lowest standards. They're exploiting the system, they're exploiting corruption, and we certainly don't want to see that. It's bad for U.S. companies trying to invest. It's bad for the people of the DRC. So we are looking forward to implementing this agreement to really cement the opportunities for U.S. companies in the DRC and in these critical mineral supply chains, and also to make sure that China's influence is reduced. And on the issue of corruption, part of the strategic partnership agreement also addresses regulatory issues, making sure that the DRC's mining sector is cleaned up so that U.S. companies can be more confident when they're investing, and that the regulations are easier to navigate. So all of this is aimed at the exact issue that you raised, and that we are very concerned with how embedded Chinese companies are in the DRC.
Well, thank you. And when I travel to anywhere in Africa, I make the point, anywhere in the world for that matter, because China, with their Belt and Roads program, is all over the place. But I make a point to everybody that the U.S. is a much better partner than the Chinese. We're there to, if we make agreements, regarding the natural resources, we're paying for them, and we're paying appropriately for them. We're not robbing these countries of some of their natural resources, which I think is what the Chinese do. But I do think that, like I said before, I think once we get in a situation where we start getting some investment in there, it has to stay in the Eastern DRC. The money does. The vast majority of it has to, people that live and work there, or that would like to work there but live there, have to see the infrastructure building up around this, and they have to see their lives getting better, or quite honestly, it's just not gonna survive long term. So with that, I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Just on that point briefly, then we'll conclude the hearing. I've had 5 hearings on the issue of cobalt coming out of DR Congo. We've had numerous people, and Ed Royce, my friend and colleague, was very active in trying to promote the idea of, hey, child labor, 35,000 approximately children are being forced into these mines and dying, in some cases getting very sick, and about 200,000 adults who are under very coercive restraints by the Chinese Communist Party who run these. And then where does the cobalt go? It goes to Xinjiang. I chair the China Commission. We've had hearings there too. Xinjiang, where the Uyghurs are being so horribly repressed and oppressed, and then it comes here. Now, if we're going to have cars that use cobalt, fine, but don't do it on the backs of children and forced labor. And so our bill, which again I hope is moot because of this agreement, would provide a rebuttable presumption that anything coming out of DRC that goes to China has been tainted with slave labor and child labor, and therefore is inadmissible to the United States. We got a major portion of it, like I said before, passed in the Ways and Means Committee. But if all this fails, we're right back to doing that. And we also have a strategy embedded in the bill, because we want the people in DR Congo to enjoy the fruits of all of that richness that they have, and let them be blessed with it, not the Chinese Communist Party that's using it to build out their military capabilities and to oppress maybe Taiwan next, certainly Hong Kong and their own people. So, this is so important that this prevail. And again, we want the people of DR Congo to benefit. Whether it be with a friendly African country or some other true democracy, that's where you do the processing with safeguards that protect not just those who mine it, but those who process it later. You don't have that with China. It just doesn't exist under a dictatorship. So thank you. And I want to thank my friend and colleague for raising those kinds of important issues. I want to thank you, Secretary Troutman, for your valuable testimony, for your very clear and well-informed answers. And to the members of our committee, including our distinguished ranking member, Ms. Jacobs, for asking her good questions as well. The members of the subcommittee may have some additional questions for the witness, and we will ask you to respond to these in writing if you would. Pursuant to committee rules, all members may have 5 days to submit statements, questions, and extraneous materials for the record, subject to the length limitations, and without objection, the committee stands adjourned.